Hello, I would like to preface this by saying I apologize by not uploading anything. I was simply, busy with school, trying to graduate, busy with helping raise my younger sister, and, like most people right now, because of the national and worldwide pandemic, a little stressed out, and a little tired, and just my mental health in general has not been great enough for me to get back to doing most of the things I enjoy doing, which is creating YouTube videos and drawing and whatnot. I also came to terms with myself that I have a irrational fear that someone in my real life, which I have people who I know in real life who know that I do stuff like this, and have a semi-popular social media life on Instagram as an artist, and I have a lot of people in my real life who have no clue that I do anything like this. And I realized I have an irrational fear of the people I know in real life that don't know that I do anything like this, finding out that I do stuff like this. And for some reason, that's just a fear of mine. I have a fear of one day my mother and or one of my other friends that I've known since high school sending me a video of mine and saying, "This you?" ? That really freaks me out. And I think it's because I'm afraid of getting bullied or made fun of, even though these people would definitely never do that. Maybe my mother, I don't know. But in general, I realized that I had a fear of people I know in real life finding out that I do this. Not for a living, obviously. I'm not a professional and I'm not a full-timer of this. I am about to graduate with a bachelor's degree and join the workforce, real adulthood. But I like doing this for fun, and for some reason it just freaks me out, the idea of anyone finding it out in my real life and making fun of me or whatever. But you know what? Like, at the end of the day, the right people will find out about it, maybe, and, be supportive, and the wrong people will find out about it and not be supportive. And I'll know which one of those people to keep in my life and keep close. And at the end of the day, fuck it, because we're in a pandemic and I might as well do stuff that makes me happy while I can. So that's my beginning spiel. I want to apologize because I have not uploaded anything in a month, maybe more. And yeah, that's it. It's the beginning part. Anyways.
The intro is new, the outro is new, but the inconsistency of posts and the inconsistency of content is the exact same. So welcome back, and if you're new here, hey. So today we're going to talk about Alfonso versus Jake Parker, the new WWE SmackDown situation we have in the art community, I guess. I'm going to be dividing this video up into 5 different sections. The first section is going to be the dudes, aka the adult men, who are fighting over social media. The second one is going to be the now quote-unquote controversial video that's been going around. That's on Alfonso's YouTube channel, which we're going to dissect. It's a very long video. It's nearly an hour, so I'm going to try to cut it up and go over it as in short a period of time as possible. Third thing is going to be Jake Parker's statement on Instagram, which we can go over that too. The fourth is going to be why people were so quick to jump on Jake Parker, which there are quite a few justified reasons for that and a few unjustified reasons for that, but we'll go over that. And then the last is one thing I don't see a lot of people addressing in this situation, because if you search anything about these two men on YouTube, most likely either Alfonso's video comes up or any number of new art community drama videos will come up. But there's one central thing that a lot of people are not talking about, and that it's that we're giving attention to two, for lack of a better word, whiny men, which, yes, it's a serious topic because it's about copyright claims and it's about someone stealing your art and your work and but I don't mean to be rude or insensitive to that situation when I say in the world there's a lot more bigger things going on right now, aka places in the United States and outside of the United States and other countries that are literally on fire and literally in poverty. And the Black Lives Matter movement, that has not changed at all, but all of these famous and big account people seem to have completely forgotten that it existed. So that's something I'm gonna go over in the end, just because it's very important that we remember that while we're all talking about these two grown men on social media who are fighting back and forth about who took whose work in this art book and who copied who in this art book, and Alfonso didn't invent these topics, but they're Jake Parker stole them specifically in the way they're formatted in the book, and da da da. There are literally places on fire, people who are homeless, shit's going down in the real world, and that is something that I also think needs to be addressed when we're talking about these quote-unquote controversial issues in the art community. And when we talk about the art community, I think about larger communities that are having more problems right now than the art community on social media, aka Instagram, which is the states in the United States that are on fire, which, by the way, it was not just I blame the gender reveal, but there were other fires. And then there's other countries that are also on fire. And there's a whole Black Lives Matter movement that is still happening. And, you know, there's just a lot more stuff going on that I think warrants a little bit more of our time and attention than these two men. But that's just my personal opinion, and we can get into that at the end. Now, if you don't know anything about these two men, here is a quick little rundown because the rest of this video is quite long. There is a situation going on right now in the art community between Alfonso Dunn and Jake Parker. Now, Jake Parker is the renowned activist slash founder of Inktober, and he never lets anyone forget it. Jake Parker also has a YouTube channel where he makes his own videos, and on his Instagram, as of right now when I'm recording this, he has 573,000 followers. Alfonso Dunn obviously has a YouTube channel, and at the point where I am recording this, he has 196,000 followers. Now, both of these men I think is worthy to point out, considering what I bring up later about Jake Parker's opinion of digital art. Both these men are strictly traditional artists. They use physical materials like paper and pen. The only main difference is that I would say that Jake Parker has more of a cartoonist, kind of a more animated style, while Dunn usually typically goes for a more realistic style, and he tends to use more color. Now, this should be an obvious disclaimer at this point, but I don't know these men personally, of course, and most of the people who make videos about these men don't know them personally. The only thing that I can tell you about them is what I see off social media and what I see other people say. So if someone personally from Jake Parker or Alfonso Dunn's family or inner circle wants to tell me that I'm getting things wrong about them, that's fine. But anything I say about here are either my opinions or stuff that I can actually back up. And I usually do a good job at specifying what is an opinion and what is a backed up fact. So that being said, I am going to introduce any preconceived notions I have about both these men just from barely knowing about them and their existence before all this happened, before the video popped up, because the only reason I'm making this video is a very nice follower sent it to me and said, what do you think about this? So the preconceived notions I have on Alfonso are honestly none. I've seen his book a lot. I've seen his book everywhere. I've seen it in stores, and I've seen other people post about it and how it's helped them a lot. So I know that his book exists, but I didn't follow him because I myself am a digital artist. Usually I focus more on fan art and cartoons and animation and that sort of thing. So my inner community of who I follow and who I interact with doesn't usually get to that side of Instagram. It doesn't get to the realism side or the traditional artist side. Now, for my preconceived notions on Jake Parker, the only stuff that I know about Jake Parker, and I will link the articles below, and I'll put a couple screenshots of what I'm talking about as I'm discussing it here, is I just know there was a lot of issues with Inktober in 2019, or it could have been 2018. I will put the correct date here. But what I know is that there were issues because Jake Parker's lawyers were going after people who were selling their Inktober work. And by going after people who were selling their Inktober work, I mean that if an artist was selling an Inktober sketchbook, this was typically the situation, is that a artist through the month of Inktober would fill up a sketchbook with drawings or inkings or even a digital sketchbook, and they would sell it. They would want to sell it themselves, and it was a one-time thing. They would only sell the one sketchbook, and it was sort of a to the highest bidder situation. But then there were also other people who had little, one or two of the days of Inktober, they had sketches or they had a piece of art that they really liked and wanted to sell, and they would sell it. But if any of these items that the artist wanted to sell had Inktober anywhere on their sketchbook, on their merch, on a sticker, anywhere, they would get claimed by Parker's legal administration. And I have problems with this for a few reasons. One of the reasons is that, in my personal opinion, as long as the person is selling their merchandise with the intent of making it clear that they do not own the Inktober logo, which is what many of these people were saying, is that they didn't own the logo, but because their stickers, their merch, their sketchbooks they were selling was an Inktober item, they wanted to make it clear that it was from Inktober 2018 or Inktober 2019 or whatever. I feel like as long as they make it clear that they're not Jake Parker, they're not affiliated with it, they're just using the logo, I feel like that's not a big of a deal, and Jake Parker shouldn't have sent his lawyers their way. And the main issue is that when he was sending lawyers their way, he wasn't saying, take it down and we'll forget this happened. He wanted the money that was generated from the revenue of selling these items with Inktober on them. Do you see where that gets a little slimy? Because he wasn't just saying, hey, this is my logo, I don't want it to be a fair use logo, I don't want you to use it, take your item down, don't do this again. And the person could have been like, sure. He very much wanted the money that was gained from selling these items if they had already been sold. And if they were going to be sold, he wanted any money that was going to be made from these items being sold in the future. So that's where it gets a little slimy for me, personally. The other issue with that, which kind of links back to this Alfonso situation, is Jake Parker is very good at playing the blame game, in my opinion. Because if you look at his response, which you can pause to read if you'd like, if you look at his response about the Inktober situation, he apologizes, which is nice, but he makes it clear that, well, in a subtle way, he makes it clear, if you look hard enough and you understand what he's actually saying, he makes it kind of clear that it's not his fault. His lawyers were going after these people. His lawyers were doing these things. It wasn't directly him. It was a miscommunication between him and his legal team, yada, yada, yada. But from what I know, when I'm about to graduate in criminal justice, so from what I know about how this works, is lawyers aren't really their own entity and don't really have the power to do anything outside of what you instruct them to do. So even if it was as small as Jake Parker said something to his legal team that anyone that sold Inktober would need to go through him first, and any money would need to go to him, that's still an instruction to his lawyers. So realistically, unless the lawyers are just pieces of shit and hate people and hate artists, which I strongly don't believe that's the case, unless the lawyers have that personality and did that, it's more likely and more realistic that Jake Parker went out of his way to say, you need to do this if you see this online, to his lawyers. You need to make sure you contact this person who's selling this stuff and tell them if they don't take it down or give me the money, we'll sue them. Because lawyers only act as a third-party system. They do what their client tells them to do. Because the lawyer themselves could get in legal trouble if they just start going off and doing whatever they want. That's not how this works. That's not how legal teams work, especially for, I mean, artists, large artists in their own way are social media influencers. So for social media influencers, lawyers just don't go off and do what they want. That's what a PR person is for. A PR person goes and directs how someone lives their life, directs how they act on the internet, how they appear to the public eye. That's what a PR person is for. Legal representation, they don't go off on their own and they don't do whatever they want. That's up to the client to tell them what they want and what they want the lawyers to do or the legal representation to do, especially when it comes to copyright. And lawyers, most of them, can't do things without the consent and the instruction of the client. So even if one of these lawyers saw that someone was using Inktober as merch and was selling it and was making money off of it, and they thought that was something that was important to tell Parker that then would have to take that information that his legal team told him and decide what to do with it. The lawyers don't have the ability to make that decision for him. So I went off on a tangent on accident, but basically that's the Inktober situation that most people still are kind of butthurt about, which I understand. They have the right to be. And then the other preconceived notion I have about Jake Parker is he has a opinion on digital art that is more than negative. I will link the article below, and I will show a screen cap of what he said on Twitter about digital art right here. But, and I've said this before in past videos, it's really shitty that traditional artists see digital art as not a valid form of art. They think digital art is easier, simpler, which I will to a point agree that there are a lot of things with digital art that are easier to do that you cannot do with traditional art. If you mess up on traditional art, you've kind of ruined your whole piece and you have to start over, especially if it's like something as gratuitous as a oil painting, any form of like watercolor, inking as well, something that Jake Parker does. So I understand to a point when people say that digital art is easier in that way, but digital art is not in any way easier in any other capacity than traditional art. You still have to be well known in art techniques. You still have to know how to do the basic things of anatomy, coloring, line work, shadows, values, all this stuff. You have to be able to know art techniques and apply them to a digital medium. So digital art is not so easy as the stigma would make you believe, as copy and paste, copy and paste. That's not what digital art is. And ever since I saw him say that on Twitter about digital art, I've had kind of an ill opinion of him, because I have never in my digital art journey, I've never thought that traditional art should be taken a certain way. I've never had any problems with traditional artists, because there are multiple ways to do art. And that's outside of painting and drawing as well. There's music. There's people who use digital tools to make music, but then there's also people who play on traditional piano. And those two are not purely seen as opposites, or that they're not in the same ballpark of music. There are multiple ways you can be an artist, a musician, that are more modern, like digital, and then there's more traditional. And both should be respected and both should be acknowledged in this community. I will also say that sites like Patreon, Society6, Redbubble, there's a reason that all of these websites, all of these merchandise selling sites, have specific ways that you can sell your own work that is fan art. Like, there's a lot of Steven Universe, there's a lot of She-Ra, there's a lot of, I'm trying to think of any cartoon that I've watched ever that isn't gay, but there's a lot of, SpongeBob is kind of gay. There's just a lot of fan art. There's a lot of merchandise that artists sell that is directly affiliated with a company, a brand. There's so many Cartoon Network stickers These websites help set up artists with the ability to do this without these larger companies taking their revenue. And if they do, it's a very small percentage. So I find it very interesting that Jake Parker would want all of the proceeds from these sales of Inktober related merch from other artists rather than collaborating or giving the option to collaborate. It just was very slimy to me that his quote unquote his lawyers, specifically his legal team, did a miscommunication where they went after all the Inktober people. I just find that very gross. In my personal opinion, I find it gross. I went off on a little bit of an Italian tangent, which I tend to do. Sorry, happens, whatever. But now I'm going to, as to the best of my ability, cut up Alfonso's video to the bare parts, which is where he discusses what points he specifically is saying that he was copied by Parker. I would suggest you watch the video for yourself so you can get the full story, but I'm just taking the most important parts, which is the parts where he is specifically referencing his own work to the work of what Parker has put in his book.
By Jake Parker, that's yet to be released on September 15th, 2020. So, of course, immediately I'm intrigued. Click on it. It says Inktober all year long, your indispensable guide to pen and drawing. Immediately I'm thinking, most likely it's maybe a collection of images over the years of Inktober. So I ordered my copy. Actually, you can see from August 23rd, because I'm pretty excited about that. So now, of course, it's not released until September 15th, so I wanted to get a sense of what was in it. So I clicked on some of the images. Looking at it, it's really cool. Then I clicked on this, and immediately, perhaps you won't be able to see it until I click on it. And then I noticed this image. It says add texture, add variety. And once I saw add variety and I'm looking at the images, I was thinking to myself, nah, this looks familiar. I think I've seen this before. And of course I've seen it before because I created that image. It's like, wow, that's interesting. So I'll show you just where that is in my book. If you haven't had a copy yet, you'll see it right now. Right here. So, variety adds interest. So the idea here is, anyway, I've noticed that you can see the three, I used three examples here. And he essentially just copied both of them without even changing them much. He just basically used the same image in his book. And I'm looking right here, follow form. And you can see right after that, I have texture follows form. Immediately when I saw this, I was thinking to myself, well, I guess he got a little lazy there, but it happens. People borrow from other artists. We are inspired by other people. And if you're not careful, you will almost subconsciously incorporate elements from that artist you admire into your work. So I'm thinking, okay, just one example. Hey, gets a pass. I'm happy he's putting out an instruction book. So I'm looking at other images. Click on this one. I clicked on this, and then I'm like, this also looks oddly familiar. Take a closer look at it, and I'm like, wow, that looks really familiar. Okay, in my same book, following along, here I have some examples of how to vary, how to use a texture and still have it convey light and shadow. That was the idea of this illustration. And you can see even in my workbook, where I've also demonstrated something very, very similar to this. At this point, I'm a little concerned. Like, okay, I know, it may be a coincidence that he has used images very close to what I have in my book, but give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that it's just a 1-2 case scenario, and it won't necessarily be something that I see in the rest of the book. So here it is. You can see the scale texture, the bumpy texture. You see the fur texture. The scale texture, the bumpy texture, and the fur texture. All right. You can even see the forms here. I'm seeing the same thing. Okay. Unfortunately, there are not that many more images, only 6 or 8 images. 2 of them I saw that definitely I see elements very similar to what's in my book. All right, so now I'm intrigued by this book. What are the 5 applications? Contour, form, local value, shading, and texture. Wow. Now, where have I seen that before? Okay. What he chose to use the word the 5 applications of a stroke. The term I used, the 5 ways to use a stroke. Why would you just directly copy my work? Inject something yours, your own. Okay, let's continue. So I click on the next page, well, the next post that he has render. And what does he have here? Value, texture, and right here is form. I'm sure, even though I don't see that word, I know that's what he's written. Why? Because that's exactly what I have in my book. In the texture section, and you know what? The cool thing about this, guys, my books. But the last thing is a 30-second flip through of the book. He's just flipping through the book, flipping through it. Awesome. Now, that flip through was 30 seconds, guys. 30 seconds. And in those 30 seconds, I already saw multiple glaring examples from my book in those 30 seconds. So what did I do? I recorded it. I recorded that flip through, and I'm going to go through it as slowly as I can so you guys can see the examples that he took from my work in more detail, right? And this is, of course, I'm sure there's a lot that I didn't see because I don't have the book yet, and he hasn't put it out yet. But just from 30 seconds, I can see a lot of information that I know he took from my book. So I'm flipping through. At this point, I don't even know what I'm feeling. I'm just in shock. Listen, nobody's perfect. But this is just like really like careless, like you, or shameless, or I don't know. Like you can't mess up this big. Like this is not cool. This is not cool. Okay. Okay. I see some illustrations there that, because at this point I'm looking for everything, right? And he has caused this. Wow. When I look at that, I immediately see the layout that I used in my book, right? Here I discussed materials. And you can see how I laid out, just like I mentioned before, you can see there's a quill pen and you can see the dip pen. The quill pen, the red pen, the dip pen. I guess it removed read because it would look too obvious. Okay, so I go to the next. Here you can see he's using the same layout design, he calls it. Oh, what's at the beginning? Control. Pen control. He took the pen off and has left control. All right, so I'm discussing the importance of holding your pen a certain way, holding it close to the point and angled, holding it close to the point, holding it away from the point and angled, holding it vertically. Here he has the same thing, holding it away from the point, holding it close to the point. Here I have illustrations of, the importance of being able to be aware of how you move your entire arm. There are times when it's better to move only your fingers and keep your rest of your body stationary. Move your wrist, move your entire arm, depending on the size of the strokes you want to make. Of course, he has the same illustrations over here. You can see them here. Okay, so I discussed the basic strokes after that. Oh, he discussed the basic strokes. All right, now look, there are certain types of strokes in pen and drawing that are standard. But to just copy the format, come on. Long hatching, short hatching, cross hatching, scribbling, curved lines, curved hatching, stippling, long lines, short lines, curved, flowing, stippling, scribbled. Like, at this point, I don't want to see anything else. But let's keep going. So, consistency in lines. Now, I discussed consistency, not in this chapter, but in shading. He included in the first chapter. Bold, man. Like, he's really bold. Like, what kind of ego must you have? Like, maybe you just think you could get away with it. Nobody would notice. I don't know. Shading complex forms. Shading complex forms. I know it doesn't look as if it's the same thing. If you read his content and read mine, you will see. And also, given the history of what I'm seeing here, yeah. Furthering. That's the same thing as varying line weight. The lines feather out. Thick to thin. Thin to thick. Thick to thin. Same concept. All right, so then I noticed he has something here. And I'm like, guys, I spent so much time. I can't reiterate this enough. It took me over 3 years, as I said, to write this book. So when I see things, it just pops out to me immediately. Because I know when you work hard for something and you get it, like how much you appreciate the hard work you put in, that's what I'm seeing here. Okay. Now, of course, you can't see a clear image here, but I'm going to show you exactly what it is. If you go on Inktober, his Inktober Instagram profile, you'll see where he made a post here from the book. So he's giving little sneak peeks of information taken from the book to build anticipation for the sale, of course. An excerpt from the Inktober book coming soon. Wow, where have I seen this? 2-step, 3-step scale, 6-step scale. Oh, man. All right, right here. 2-step scale, 3-step scale, 6-step scale. Guys, this is another, he couldn't do it like this because that would be too obvious. So we did it like this. Here, I showed a complex block form. So I'm showing that you can apply the same 3-step value method to applying a complex form just by visualizing it as a block form where you're seeing 3 main planes, even on this major complex form. And he did the same thing here. And this is a local value. This, you know what? This image I created from a YouTube video. And I chose, I said, you know what? I'm not going to recreate it for the book. I'm just going to use that same image. And I scanned it and imported it in the Adobe InDesign software. And I made this to illustrate local value. And why is this important? Local value, because you have to learn how to control the range of your values. So wow, look what he copied right after that. Controlling the range of your values. Because I discussed it right here. And where does he get this exercise from? Wow. Here, controlling the range of your values. Light to light, middle to light, middle to deep, dark to, here he has it. Light to light, middle to light, dark to middle, dark to light.
Now, this could be due to me being a dumbass and I can't read or see or something alike, but Alfonso makes a point to say that there's no way, which I agree, there's no way that Jake Parker could not have known that Dunn's work existed or know anything about Dunn. He can't put up the excuse that he has never witnessed Dunn's work before, because Dunn shows on Jake Parker's Instagram page, there's a post where he quotes Dunn and he says that his work is really good, and there's a post about it. Now, it could just be me, but I cannot find this post anywhere on Jake Parker's Instagram page. And that could be because A, I'm dumb and I can't find it, or B, the more likely scenario, well, I'm not going to pretend it's not more likely that I just can't find it because I'm dumb. But the other likely scenario is that his legal team told him to, like, his legal team or him watched the Alfonso's full video and fully decided to delete it to cover up any trace of him knowing that Alfonso Dunn's work existed, and that would put him more liable to be accused legally of copying his work. But the problem is that video Alfonso put up of him screen recording and showing that Jake Parker acknowledged his work is already in existence. The video is already up, and as soon as I watched the first minute of the video, I downloaded it. I downloaded the straight MP3 file to my phone, to my computer, because I knew that, well, one, I'm lazy and it's going to take me forever to do this video, and two, if it gets taken down, the evidence will also get taken down. So I find it funny that I can't find that post anymore. But again, it's possible that I missed it. Let's get into the juicy juice, which is overlooking and going over Jake Parker's statement about this whole thing. Now, the comments, of course, are a complete shit show. Really, it's people that are either half and half, where they say, yes, the concepts are similar enough, but some of them are too exact for me to think it's not plagiarism. And then there's people saying there's way too many coincidences, and then there's people who are either fully on Jake's side. It's a mess. It's a whole mess. Now, from a legal standpoint and from the standpoint of someone who owns a brand, I understand him preferring to be contacted directly, just out of general respect. If Alfonso would have contacted Jake and would have said something along the lines of, hey man, there's a lot of similarities, can we have a Zoom call to discuss? Can we da-da-da? But at the same time, Jake Parker, sorry to bring this up again, but Jake Parker has a track record of using his legal team to get what he wants, not figuring out a beneficial solution for both parties in a situation. So, and I'm not sure if Alfonso has any sort of idea of the type of stuff that had happened with Inktober with Jake Parker before with legal issues. So maybe he does know about that, how Jake Parker went along handling those situations, and he knew that if he handled it privately, he would have been shut up. Because I can also see a situation where if Dunn emailed or wanted a Zoom call with Jake Parker and he was like, hey man, I think you stole some of my stuff, Jake Parker would have had the upper hand. He could have, probably within the next 12 hours or even the next 5 hours, had his legal team draft something up legally saying that Alfonso had to sign I forgot what they're called, but there are these forms that you can sign to have someone basically shut up and not make a video, not talk about it on social media, nothing, until they figure out a solution. Then most likely they would have sent him a big check to not say shit, and everything would have been hunky-dory on Jake Parker's end, and none of this would have happened. So I honestly get why Alfonso decided to go public first and not contact Jake Parker and his team directly and more discreetly beforehand. And if any of you have followed me or known me for a while, you know all I love to do is run my mouth and talk shit on the internet all day, every day. So I understand him wanting to make a video first. I probably would have done the same thing, especially with Jake Parker, because Jake Parker has shown a pattern of using his legal team to screw other artists over. So personally, I get it. Now, I want to get into a little bit of why people were so quick to jump on Jake Parker's case and, really, really get into the narrative that Jake wrong, Alfonso right. Which, if that's the narrative you want to present and then that's the narrative you want to support, that's perfectly fine. But I feel like it's a lot deeper than that. The first thing is that, of course, that ugly word no one likes to talk about, cancel culture. Cancel culture is not, I think people get the wrong idea about cancel culture, because cancel culture, funny how I can't say controversy right out the bat, but I can say cancel culture just fine. I think people think that cancel culture is going into everyone's past and alienating them and attacking them for every single mistake they ever made in their entire life and bringing it up to light. That is not what cancel culture is. At least not the good part. The good part of cancel culture is that cancel culture pushes people to own up for their mistakes that maybe that they should have acknowledged in the past, but they haven't. So it's getting more people aware of mistakes they have made in the past that need to be addressed, such as racial slurs, or in the case of Shane Dawson, the P word that I'm not going to mention so I don't get my entire tiny little channel striked and removed. But that is the only good part of cancel culture that exists. The bad part of cancel culture that I think people don't always think about is that the bad part is jumping on a bandwagon of cancellation of a figure without doing your research, without double checking. Because from what I have seen just on Instagram and just from Alfonso's video, if I'm someone who isn't in the art community and knows a little bit better about these type of situations, like if I'm just a passerby, and you will immediately think, yeah, Jake Parker is canceled. And that's where the bad part of cancel culture comes from, because it's important to do your research, fact check. The main problem that cancel culture is people get on the bandwagon of hating a person, canceling a person, and they don't do their research. I'm not going to go over the example I wanted to use because Ethan Becker did it, and if I do it, it'll just look like I'm lazy and stole his example. But Ethan Becker highlights this to the James Charles situation. Everyone jumped on hating James Charles, and then as soon as he came out with proof, everyone felt bad, and he got all his subscribers back and he got all his likes back. But that just shows that people were willing to believe the word of someone over someone else with little to no proof and completely cancel them and basically ruin their lives. That is the toxic part of cancel culture, is that people are so willing to be lazy, and that's what it is, being lazy, to not fact check and double check what people need to, like, you need more. Like, for me, I don't know about other people, for me, I need more. Like, if I see someone being canceled, I'm going to do at least a little bit of Googling or a little bit of fact checking to make sure that I completely remove this person from my life or from my social media. But people are so willing to see one tweet of someone saying that someone else is canceled and then that's it. But the main thing with this is that a lot of people in Jake Parker's comment section really obviously did not watch Alfonso's video. And I'm not saying that Alfonso is completely right in this case, but you can tell they didn't at least give Alfonso's video a chance. There's even a comment that says they watched it for 8 minutes and stopped. I'm like, well, that's fine, but don't say that you have the whole story. Another thing that I have seen going around that I feel like is, like, worthy to talk about, which if I can find people, I've seen a couple people say it in their captions, and I've seen examples of it in certain comment sections, but if I can't find any examples, I am sorry, just try to take my word for it. Or do your own research, like I just said. But basically, Alfonso being a black artist affects the narrative. And what I mean by that is that this easily got taken over by a lot of activists, which is good. It's good that there are artist activists specifically out there who are looking out for black creators and looking out for black artists and looking out for Alfonso specifically. But there's a lot of people who are using the fact that Alfonso is a black man and twisting that to their own advantage to cancel, quote unquote, cancel Jake Parker. That to me is really gross, because all of these pages and all of these accounts that are suddenly like, Jake Parker stole from a black creator, so we are doing a black Inktober, and we are doing da-da-da-da, like, stan Alfonso Dunn, hate Jake Parker, but they have never once, there's nothing on their page about Black Lives Matter, and I don't want to, like, attack anyone's page, so if I find a specific page with a caption like this, I'm not gonna I'm not going to put their personal information in this video, but there's a lot of people who have no Black Lives Matter content on their page, no Black Lives like resources in their bio, no posts or anything about Black Lives Matter on their page anywhere or anything, and yet they're very much jumping on this bandwagon of the narrative that Jake Parker steals from Black artists and which, if you want to advocate for Black artists, that's great. We all should be doing more of that. But don't use Alfonso Dunn as your, scapegoat to hop on an issue of white artists stealing from Black artists, because I can tell you there's a lot more going on right now in the art community. Like, for instance, the blackwashing, which is not real, the blackwashing that's going on with Princess Peach and Rosalie and all that on Twitter. There's so much that you could be advocating for that you could have up to this point without just using Alfonso Dunn's name as a scapegoat to show that you're woke and that you're for the BLM movement. Now, without getting into too much detail, because it's a really depressing topic that I don't want to bum people out with too much, basically, the United States is literally on fire. There's quite a few stretching along the West Coast. There are multiple people who have been evacuated from their homes, evacuated from their communities. People are in danger, and the air quality is enough to make people very ill or even die. And not just only the West Coast in America, there's also places around the world. The New York Times isn't meant to be super trusted, but I will link the article down below that the Arctic, Siberia, Indonesia, these places are also on fire and having really bad wildfires. Brazil, it's Argentina, Australia. There are so many wildfires that are affecting other places around the world. It's not just the United States, as the news would have you believe. There are places all around the entire globe right now that are having fires, and they're not just man-made fires. There's a problem with issues with global warming, which I'm not going to get into a debate right now, but it's not just California. As the article says, it's not just California. There's places all over that need our help, that need us to be more aware of. I didn't even know that other places other than the United States were suffering from wildfires until I did a search today on wildfires, when I was going to link articles about what's going on right now in the United States. Same with the Black Lives Matter movement. That has not changed. The only thing that is same with the coronavirus, which is a very popular thing that is going around on social media, the coronavirus has not changed, just our stigma and our attitude about it. Same with the Black Lives Matter movement. As a lot of people predicted, as soon as the initial hype of the revolution was over, people were going to take down their posts, remove their resources, and everything was going to go back to normal. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. There are still plenty of protests that are still happening. There are plenty of issues still happening. I have resources in the bio of my Instagram if you are wanting to know how you can help with these things. There's still issues in Lebanon from the explosion that happened in that city. It's just, in general, a lot of things that people are going through right now, in my opinion, are more important than two men fighting over art book and social. Can I mention, two pretty successful men, if I'm being honest. Jake Parker has Inktober under his hat, and he won't let us forget it. So he always will have Inktober. He has a pretty popular YouTube channel, and he is, doing pretty well as an artist with his following and where he has been, and the fact that he is publishing books. Alfonso Dunn, whether or not he's correct or not in getting screwed over from Jake Parker, he has an established art book. He also has over 500,000 followers on YouTube, and he's doing pretty well for himself. So while we are arguing over two successful men in the art industry, there are people who are suffering. And I just feel like there are things that we should be discussing, not daily, because of course it's hard to talk about activism every single day, because it's hard. Because these things are depressing. These things mess with your mental health. I get it. But I feel like if we're going to go out of the way to talk about these two successful men fighting over social media, we can also talk about other things that need to be talked about. And at the end of the day, it's two men, two grown men, two grown successful men fighting over social media. You can argue that Alfonso Dunn is not as successful as Jake Parker, and Jake Parker is not as successful as Alfonso Dunn. But at the end of the day, it's two men that have established careers in this art community, in the art field, and they're arguing over social media, and we've all been dragged into it. Yeah, I went off a little bit. I apologize. Usually when I record myself for these videos, I just talk a lot about my personal feelings on a situation, but like, why else? It's a mixture of both. I bring you the facts, I rant a little bit. Sorry. But, you know, the most important thing that I think anyone could take away from this video is to not forget the real issues that are happening in the world. And please, for the love of God, with anything that has to do with cancel culture and anything that has to do with people getting canceled or issues, like, please fact check yourself these issues first. Do your own research first. That is the most important thing. Anyways, that was a long rant at the end, but you know what? What else do you come for? I hope you all have a great day. I hope you are taking care of yourself. Please change your clothes, do your laundry, wash your hair. Make sure you study in school and do your homework on time. Do not wait till the last minute. Yeah, I'm talking directly to you, student. And wear your mask. Wear your goddamn mask. And please have a lovely day. And I hope you learned something today. If not, you know what? That's fine. Bye!